The sterile hum of the starship was the only sound in the small, dimly lit med bay. Lieutenant Kara Holden stood over a figure that, for all intents and purposes, should have been just another casualty of the war. His form lay motionless under a torn, heavy blanket, his body a patchwork of synthetic stitches, bruises, and open wounds. Kara's duty was clear: clean him up, stabilize his condition, and send him on his way to the med station where the more advanced medical drones would take over. It was the kind of routine task she'd done hundreds of times. Nothing ever seemed unusual about it. But today, something about this man felt different. She couldn't place it. Maybe it was the way his broad, strong hands twitched under the blanket, or the way his breathing sounded deeper than any human she had ever treated. She ran a hand over her tired face, trying to focus. She had a job to do. But as her gloved hands pulled back the blanket, she was not prepared for what she found beneath. Story. Kara had seen hundreds of soldiers in her time, aboard the Hesperides, a deep space exploration vessel. Most of them were human, some from Earth, others from distant colonies. But every soldier had the same battle-hardened look, grim faces, tired eyes, and limbs that carried scars of war. This man, though, wasn't like the others. His skin wasn't pale like Earthlings or the usual shades of violet and blue common to the inhabitants of Mars. It shimmered, iridescent like the surface of a pearl. His eyes were closed, but they weren't human. They seemed to flicker with a faint glow, like starlight trapped in a deep ocean. Kara took a step back, feeling an uneasy prickling at the base of her neck. She'd seen strange creatures before. She'd even encountered a few different species during her time in the service. But this was something entirely different. What really caught her attention, though, was the thick black thread-like tendrils that seemed to shift and pulse just beneath the surface of his skin. They weren't veins. They were moving, alive, writhing like something inhuman inside him. Her heart raced as her fingers hovered over the med station's interface, unsure whether to call for assistance or to simply turn away. But that thought was fleeting. She couldn't just leave him there. He was still breathing, still alive, despite the apparent damage. With a soft sigh, she pushed the fear aside and began to work. Her gloved hands gently rolled the man over, her fingers trembling as they touched his iridescent skin. As she did, a low, almost imperceptible hum filled the room. The blankets shifted on their own, and Kara's heart skipped a beat. She pulled back sharply, the hairs on her neck standing on end. The hum grew louder, and the tendrils beneath the man's skin seemed to stretch, like they were sensing her presence. For a moment, Kara thought she saw a glimmer of recognition in his flickering eyes. Then, as if suddenly aware of her touch, the man's chest rose sharply, and his hand shot out, grabbing her wrist in an iron grip. "Don't." His voice was a low growl, but his words were clear. Her heart pounded in her chest. His touch, though powerful, felt tender, almost as if he didn't want to harm her. He released her wrist slowly, but his fingers lingered for a moment too long, sending a jolt of warmth through her body. Who are you?" Kara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he blinked slowly, as if waking from a long sleep. The glow in his eyes grew brighter, his tendrils seemingly pulsing faster. Then, without warning, he pushed himself up into a sitting position, his body moving fluidly, almost unnaturally. He hesitated, clearly trying to find the right words. "I'm something else." Kara's confusion deepened. She glanced at his body, searching for any clues to his identity, and her eyes caught a series of metallic symbols engraved into his collarbone. Alien runes. They didn't match any language or system of writing she had encountered in her extensive training. "I'm sorry," she said, struggling to maintain composure, "but I don't understand. You're not human." The man's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, Kara thought she saw something akin to sorrow in them. He seemed to be gauging her reaction, unsure whether to trust her or not. "No," he said, his voice quieter now, more vulnerable. "I'm not." Kara stood still, the weight of his words sinking in. She had suspected it, but hearing him confirm it was something else entirely. The ship's alarms suddenly blared, shaking her from her thoughts. A new threat was emerging from the nearby asteroid field. The war was still out there, still happening, and the Hesperides was caught in the middle. I need to help you, she said, focusing once again on her mission. But before she could move, the man reached out, his hand gently wrapping around her wrist once more. Wait, he said, his tone urgent. There's something you should know, something dangerous. Kara's heart raced. She had no time for games, but something in his voice stopped her. What do you mean? He looked around the room, his eyes flicking to the door. The ship's walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with the movement beneath his skin. I'm not just a soldier. I'm a weapon. The enemy's weapon. The words hit Kara like a blow to the chest. Her mind raced, trying to piece everything together. He was something more, something unnatural. He had been created, manipulated for some larger, darker purpose. Her instincts told her to push him away, to report him to the higher-ups, but her heart told her something different. She couldn't explain it, but the connection between them was undeniable. Why did you come to us? She asked, her voice trembling. His eyes locked onto hers, a deep, unspoken understanding passing between them. I didn't want to, he whispered, but they forced me. They made me a soldier, and I can't fight it anymore. Before she could say anything else, the room shook again. The alarms grew louder. The ship was under attack. In that moment, her mind made a decision. She could turn him in, betray him, and keep the ship safe. Or she could trust him. She could believe that he was more than the weapon they had turned him into. The lights flickered, and the man stood, his body growing tense, ready for action. Without thinking, Kara grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the door. You're not alone, she said, her voice filled with determination. The door opened with a hiss, revealing chaos beyond. A storm of battle raged in the distance, the glow of enemy ships lighting up the vast blackness of space. The man looked at Kara, his gaze full of gratitude, but also uncertainty. His body was still fighting the change, the tendrils beneath his skin twitching, the weapon inside him threatening to surface. Kara looked back at him, her heart racing. We fight this together. The two of them, unlikely allies, stood side by side in the face of the unknown, a soldier and a healer, united by something neither fully understood. As the battle raged on around them, they fought not just for survival, but for something more, a future where, maybe, they could change the course of their fate.